So here's an interview with Tucker Carlson and Michael Savage. They're talking about the differences between Reform Judaism versus Chabad. Some of you listening to this are going to be offended. Some of you listening to this are going to say, oh, and this might actually resonate deeply. Some of you may be totally unfamiliar with the Reform movement of Judaism versus Chabad. And you might find this insightful. But if you wait till the end, after I play the video, I'd like to share with you the secret to Chabad's success. For those of you who are aware of what Chabad is, you know that they are a very powerful, influential, and inspirational force of Judaism, of inspiration around the world. And there's a reason why Chabad is so attractive. And I want to share that with you, but watch till the end.
I'm back with the great political commentator, Tucker Carlson. You know, I prayed before you came on the show. I called a rabbi, I know a Chabad rabbi, and I said, I have Tucker Carlson on the show. It's a very important interview. It's my first show. It's very important. It's going to set the stage for this entire TV show that I have. He said, I'm actually going to send a message to the head rabbi in New York to pray on this meeting, believe it or not.
Well, thank you.
I know you're a religious man, aren't you, Tucker? You're a believer?
Yes, I am. And what's interesting is without getting too into it, but the Episcopal Church is very much like Reform Judaism, very much like Reform Judaism.
Righto.
So similar that if you go to Emmanuel in New York, or if you are very familiar with Reform Judaism and you go to an Episcopal church, you're like, oh wait, I recognize this immediately. In fact, one was kind of based on the other, honestly. But the point is, they're both, I don't even know any enthusiastic Reform Jews anymore. I grew up with a lot of them, and I don't know any enthusiastic Episcopalians anymore, very few. They're Chabad now. Or I think people have realized it's not worth making a sacrifice of 2 hours a week to show up in some building if there's no meaning or spiritual power there. It's like, it's just weak soup. It doesn't feed anything in you. That stuff's dying. It's going away.
1,000% why I wandered my entire life looking for a more fundamental connection to God in plain English, where I felt it. So I've got to tell you this story. It's interesting. Russell was 4 years old. We moved to California from Hawaii, 4. And I had never heard of these guys with the black hats. I used to think they were funny when I saw them. So a local rabbi who got tired of me couldn't take me anymore because he couldn't get through to me. We were talking. He said, why don't you go over to Berkeley? I walk in there. I see these guys dancing in a circle, and I feel the energy I felt in the Fiji Islands. I felt like I was in some primitive village, and I really felt that I was at home because they had a fervor. I saw the same thing in a Harlem church in the 1960s with Brother Billy in an all-black church. I felt the floorboard shake when they were chanting, singing to God. And that's what's missing. I mean, if you're not chanting to God from the inside, God isn't listening. That's what I think.
I think that's right. And what's the point? I mean, why worship an idea or an abstraction unless you're worshiping a living God who created the universe? It's kind of pointless. I mean, just, go to St. Bart's and order room service. Like,
sounds good.
The fruits of the flesh. No, I'm serious. Like, what? There's no point to it. And in the end, it's hollow, and it becomes a grotesque distortion, like a lot of mainstream religion does in the end, where it's just like some aged lesbian with a miserable personal life hectoring you about something stupid like trannyism or something. It becomes a joke, and it has, sadly. It makes me sad.
So here's the secret. Every single Chabad rabbi you meet, and the truth is this, I wouldn't say this is exclusive to Chabad, but I would say this is predominant within Chabad. Every single rabbi you're going to meet is incredibly passionate, incredibly joyous, and incredibly selfless. They buy into what they're doing, and they literally care about you very much. And these three things actually go hand in hand. Passion is attractive. That's just a fact. In the Lubavitcher Rebbe's, one of his final addresses to the Chabad Rabbi Convention, to the Shluchim, the Kinus HaShluchim, the Convention of Chabad Rabbis, he shared with the Shluchim that there's a distinction between a shliach and an emissary or ambassador of God versus a servant of God. A servant of God just does what he has to do. He got a job to do. Got to get it done. An ambassador, a shliach, buys in with his entire heart and soul. To the point that he's even like opinionated because he's just so passionate. It's like, how am I going to get this done? And he cares deeply, and that radiates. That's attractive. That's influential. It actually changes the world When you're passionate about God, you don't just do what God says to do. You don't just listen to God, but you're passionate about it. It actually radiates. It actually becomes attractive. And the way you get that passion is through joy. That's like the pathway. Because one of the things joy does is opens us up. One of the well-known analogies in Hasidic texts, ancient Hasidic texts, is imagine a king. A king lives a very private life, although there are public speeches but you don't really know much about the king's personal life. But when it comes to his child's wedding, where there's incredible joy, all of a sudden he opens up and he's approachable and he could connect. And you see people who are sometimes very, I don't want to use the word introverted, but very much to themselves, very inward type people. Or sometimes you could have a person who might be relatively stingy or not on the most generous side, but when they're joyous, when they're happy, all of a sudden something opens up within them, and passion, love, generosity, benevolence, all these things just flow forward. And the secret to the influence of Chabad is their joy, but it's real joy. It's true joy, not just happiness, not just things that make me happy. They're not just doing things that make them happy. There's real joy that comes from a very, very deep space. And where does that come from? That comes from the selflessness. Because the moment we step out of the way, and life isn't about my agenda, life isn't about me, life is about what I'm needed for. Like JFK said, ask not what your country can do for you, what can you do for your country? The moment we're focused on what we're needed for and we kind of just step out of our way, we open ourselves up to connect to a very deep space in understanding, feeling, and being passionate about what God wants. I'll tell you a story. I had met a fellow who became very passionate about Judaism. He would come to Chabad. And again, I don't think this is exclusive to Chabad necessarily, but I would say this is more predominant in traditional Judaism, where we're focused on what we're needed for because we're focused on fulfilling God's commands. And this fellow that I'm talking about he told me he would never step foot in an Orthodox synagogue, would never step foot in a Chabad synagogue, religious fundamentalists, and it's extreme. That was the perception he had, and he would never show up. He ended up showing up for a different event, some sort of event that was taking place, and it was a Shabbat, and he decided to show up. But he wasn't showing up for Chabad. He had a friend that wanted him to come, so he was just coming for his friend. And he ended up canceling the membership at his other temple, and he started coming regularly. And I said, "What changed?" He says, "Yeah, I'd never stepped foot in here, but my perception changed." I said, "What was your change?" He says, "I came, and I came to pray. I came because my friend asked me to come for this event, and I saw something incredible." I said, "What'd you see?" "I saw that everything that was taking place wasn't about me and what I wanted, but it was about God and what I needed. It wasn't like, okay, this prayer is no good, take it out. This is the political agenda the rabbi wants to push. This is what the sermon is going to be." It was literally all about God, about what you need to do, about what you're needed for. And to me, that was an incredibly joyous experience that resonated deeply. And I believe that is one of the secrets to the passion that Chabad rabbis demonstrate. Because when they have that passion comes from joy, and that joy comes from selflessness, focusing on the purpose for which God created them, illuminating this world with the values of God, and not just focusing on what feels good, for lack of better words. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.